My Lords, I declare my interests as a visiting professor at Buckingham University, many of whose customers are adult learners. And what a pleasure to follow those two outstanding maiden speeches. I felt the Right Reverend Prelate, the Bishop of Sheffield, who'd spoken about his scholarly immersion, and indeed his pastoral immersion, although we didn't call it that, gave us a kind of distilled version of all the things he'd learned, and I hope it will be the first of many such contributions. And it's an immense pleasure to speak after and to welcome my noble friend, Lord Sewell of Sanderstead. Lord Sewell, one of the functions of this chamber and one of the purposes intrinsic in its composition is to bring us a diversity of perspective and complementary skills and backgrounds, then, as we've heard, he will be an outstanding contributor, enlarging our view and ennobling our debates. Lord Sewell, as we just heard, was the son of Windrush generation settlers who had the courage and the enterprise to leave everything behind and start from the bottom in a new country. And as we just heard, that should be honourable enough. It is bizarre. I say this conscious that Thursday is the 75th anniversary. It is slightly bizarre that we have to pretend that this was some kind of gap year poverty tourism thing to help the post-war UK. There is nothing sordid about wanting a better future for your family. That is a very good thing. And we are very lucky as a family, as a country, to benefit from the energy and enterprise of people so motivated. Lord Sewell then became an inner-city teacher, again, not in any spirit of poverty tourism, because he wanted a job and he was in the inner city, and he became a successful role model to generations. And it was there that he had the initiative of setting up his STEM charity, initially getting black boys into STEM subjects, and he's now widened it to cover underprivileged kids from all communities. It's a terrific enterprise generating genius. Something you didn't hear about him is that he was also a columnist and regular contributor to The Voice in the 1980s, at a time when that newspaper was a model of intellectual diversity, variety, and pluralism, when there were really meaningful debates about the role of family, the role of employment, and so on, in a way that in our more clickbaity age, I think almost every newspaper could learn from. We've become a lot more siloed. And, of course, he was the author of that report. And he came in for a lot of flack, including from one or two members of your lordship's chamber. But I think it is worth mentioning that it was a report that Lord Sewell chaired, written by ethnic minority Brits, all of whom had achieved distinction and excellence in a field other than the race industry. They were there because they were outstanding educators, economists, scientists, or whatever. And it's a glimpse of a future Britain where individuals from every background are judged according to their success in whatever field, rather than everything being dragged back into the old paradigm of race, although there are one or two, as we saw in the response to Lord Sewell's report, still wanting to drag us back there. My Lords, I support this bill. I support this bill for the reasons that we've heard on all sides. I thought Lord Blunkett and the noble lady Baroness Blackstone gave outstanding history, if you like, of the way in which lifelong learning has been a tool for the betterment of people throughout this country down the centuries. In fact, probably the proudest boast, if they don't mind my saying this from the outside, the proudest boast of our labour movement in this country, in its broadest political sense, was the way in which it saw politics as a way of raising people up rather than tearing people down. We had a debate at the end of last week on the role of freelancers. And I'm going to repeat a point that I made then, which is I look at my own children, one of whom is just starting school, one of whom is just leaving university. I don't think any of them will have a job as we understood that word in the 20th century. I think they will go through life constantly reskilling and freelancing and adapting to accelerating technology. And so the old model we had, where you go to school and then you work and then you retire, has gone. And we need to adapt in all sorts of ways, with all sorts of policy responses in terms of how we see social security, how we see pensions, how we see employment law. But above all, we need to change the model of learning. Because as artificial intelligence spreads, as the turnover of jobs speeds up, as more and more positions become obsolete and other ones are created, the need for people to be able to come back in briefly and to learn the requisite skills is going to increase. And the role of government here is to facilitate. It's not to provide. It's to remove obstacles. Now, I'm not sure, honestly, that I'd have ever, had it been up to me, gone down the road of limiting fees in universities. How did Lord Stevens of Birmingham put it? A nice phrase about tailored to the circumstances of the student, not the mode of learning. I think I'd have looked for ways to support the individuals. But that is a debate that's been and gone within the world in which we exist. This, it seems to me, is a bill that removes some anomalies, that tidies things up, and that creates a fairer opportunity for those coming later. I'm conscious, of course, of the point my noble friend Lord Willits made about the difficulty that older people have wanting to take on new loans. But there must surely be ways, in an age when people are needing to learn cutting-edge skills, for governments to provide that support. But the big picture here is that, and I think all of us on all sides are in agreement, we need absolutely to rethink the role of education. We need to create the kind of model where people are able, at any point in life, to switch and to reskill as needed. And doing so doesn't just make us more employable, it makes us more interesting and more interested. It makes us more engaged, more rounded, and more content.